Hello and welcome back to your only Accies preview for this Friday night's game against Ayr United. Before we go into that though, let's talk about Queen of the South. A 1-0 win, 4 points on the leaderboard for me, and not our prettiest performance. I didn't feel as if we carried on the same style and intensity as we did against Partick Thistle, but nevertheless, it's an important 3 points and pretty much secures us safety. Not mathematically, but we're feeling a lot more comfortable now.
Ah, fuck.
We should say we've got the Scotland game on. We should say that.
McGinn nearly scored after 6 minutes. Aye, mate. Like we sort of touched on the Twitter Spaces, it wasn't a very pretty performance. It was nowhere near the sort of standard which we played against Thistle, which we were hoping to sort of replicate. But at the end of the day, mate, we've got the 3 points and we've got the 1-0 victory. I think in the Twitter Spaces we sort of touched on that it did seem a slightly different setup. I think you noticed that many points that both Winter and Ryan were extremely deep, very wide. And I think like you touched on, that was because they wanted to sort of play football as such, which I kind of get on that part, but I would still have liked us to go with exactly sort of. We went with the same team. I think we should have went with the same sort of setup, and I think we would have been more effective because we struggled massively to break down Queen of the South. But credit where credit's due. I think at the start of Taylor's reign, the way in which that result went, I don't think we would have won it. We were breaking them down, and we just couldn't break them down at all, and we eventually did it, which credit where credit's due, we got the win, but it wasn't very pretty.
No, not pretty at all. And as you said, we kept the same team, but as you touched on, it was a different kind of style. As you kind of predicted previously, when you were talking about it, you had the two wingers that were very forward and close to David Moyle, who was our focal point. It had them sitting a lot deeper and a lot more wide. And then as I suggested, it was to try and play more football, and Stuart Taylor kind of confirmed that afterwards. But another man of the match performance from Steve Lawson as well in midfield, who was fantastic. And as we talked about in the Twitter Spaces, probably unlucky Daniel O'Reilly not to get it, given how good he was as well and getting the assist. But Steve Lawson, as he was with Partick, all over the pitch and rightly voted as man of the match in the Twitter Spaces.
No, the past few games he's been a breath of fresh air, and it's clear to see why the Livy fans were obviously raving so much about him. Livy fans obviously mentioned to us and a few people on Twitter that I feel his best position is in midfield, and he's clearly proven that with how he's taken to the role and how we've asked him to play. He's been massive for us in the past few games and deservedly so man of the match in both games. The way in which we set up, I think, because Spence is so defensively minded, and we've sort of got Ryan and Winter quite deep, so we're not a very attacking minded team. Having Lawson in that role where he's just sort of floats about everywhere in the park, he sort of covers every blade of grass. It's vital, and he's proven to be a very shrewd bit of business. And it's just glad we've got him for next season as well, because I think he'll be a very important player for us next season.
Absolutely. And we'll end this just talking about Queen of the South on Andy Winter's goal. Brilliant goal, great pass from Daniel O'Reilly around the back, and it's that little drop of the shoulder that I like. I think Naylor said on Twitter he sent the defender for a hot dog, which I quite liked. And it's just a nice composed finish, and something that somebody mentioned on Twitter that's the kind of finish that we don't really see a lot from Accies strikers, is somebody who just has that bit of composure in the box to beat a man and slot it in. So, and great to get Andy Winter, obviously he's third goal of the season, so brilliant for him too.
No, I will correct you, it was wee Liam that said it, and I know Liam is a very big listener, so it was him that used that part. But no, listen, it's set him for a hot dog, but I don't know if you saw the scenes when it actually went in. It was probably one of my best / funniest moments of all season. Literally less than a minute before the goal went in, the women came around with all the sort of pies that were left over, so the free pies. You know what's going to come next. and I'm not kidding you, on 30 seconds before, so she's gave it everybody. I've never saw some people that go to Accies games move fast. Honestly, they moved faster than half the players to get these pies, and we're all just standing there. Then obviously the goals went in, and you know what's going to happen next. You just see a fucking barrage, the fucking pies going up in there onto the park, and then next time you see all the seagulls latching onto the pies. So no, that was quite funny. But no, it was a brilliant goal. The pass for O'Reilly was different class. Is the fact that he actually sees Winter, because you see Winter like sort of point to where he wants it to go, and he times his run perfectly. Obviously that unknown Murrow player kept him one side, which makes it even more sweeter. But brilliant ball, just the wee dummy, and then just the lovely finish. It's like you said, it's not a finish you really see Accies players do a lot, and obviously we've not saw a lot of Winter because he's obviously had that injury. I think when he first broke through that Edinburgh City game, he scored in his debut. He was very well sort of thought of within the under 19s, etc. He was scoring a barrage of goals, and hopefully now that he's came back for his injury, he gets a sort of run in the team that can just make his confidence, and we'll see this player that was very tipped the level that he was supposed to get to, because he's obviously been unlucky injury wise, and I'm sure if he's not hampered with injuries next season, he'll be a big player for his next season too.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of him. So, David, let's get your opinion on Queen of the South as well. I'm assuming you agree with what Brandon and I were talking about. Not the prettiest game, but ultimately the 3 points is the most important thing.
Yeah, definitely not the prettiest game. Probably the term I would use for it is it was comfortable. Apart from the effort for Queen of the South in the first half, which was straight at the keeper. I mean, really, the guy should have done so much better. I think that was the boy for Kilmarnock.
Yeah, on loan in his Cameron, yeah.
Cameron. Apart from that, they really didn't create anything or threaten at all. I would like to have seen us win it a bit more comfortably, and there's no going around it. We didn't create enough at all. First half, I don't think we created anything kind of clear cut. But I'm still happy with the way the game went. I mean, the goal came at a good time. So I believe it was about 65 minutes. Usually when we've been in these positions, we start getting into the 75, 80 minutes, then the panic starts. Then we start playing the ball more direct. The goal came at a good time. And once they conceded, they didn't look like kind of pressuring us much more. There was a wee flurry maybe near the end, you could say. But nothing really to be concerned about. I think it's a good sign of progression. I think we can say that the last few weeks we have made progress. Like I say, the Partick Thistle result goes without saying. We blew a team away, which we hadn't really done this season. And now we're kind of grinding out the results that we were struggling to do before. So, like I say, it was only a 1-0, but hopefully maybe in the next couple of weeks, and then obviously the beginning of the next season, we start to do that a bit more comfortably and kill the game off a bit more. So I'm happy with it, and it was an excellent goal, really composed finish. And it is, like I say, the last few weeks, I think we could all, as Accies fans, say that our perspective on a lot of things has changed. Now, don't get me wrong, a couple of bad results and that can change again, but the way I'm looking at it just now is, for the first time in my memory, the majority of our squad is signed up for next season. We know that with certain players that we're looking to secure a defence, that could be pretty much as it is just now. We could basically have the exact same defensive unit as we've got at the moment. You can't argue that the strikers are on form, and that's the first time we can say that, and it's the first time I've been able to say that with more than one player, I think. Andy Ryan is doing what he does. David Moyo is now starting to chip in with goals. That's the big thing that he's been criticised for. And then Andy Winter looks like a perfect option to have as well. So the perspective is starting to look a bit better. To me, from now on, it all seems to be about securing ourselves as a unit and kind of be prepared for next season. I mean, I don't know how many times I've said that on podcasts this season. That is what this whole season's came down to, was the lack of preparation and kind of naivety about where we believed we were at that stage. There's players that are out on loan that you know that's them gone. and hopefully I don't think there's a mass clear out needed. I think the odd couple, and like I say, the right recruitment. And to be fair, if it's Stan himself that have done that, you can't argue with the January business. Dan O'Reilly and Steve Lawson are first team players, starting 11 players that have come in January. So fair play to them for that. It's just where we go next.
Speaking of Steve Lawson, he was kind of chosen as man of the match when we did our Twitter Spaces on Sunday night. I said that Daniel O'Reilly's probably unlucky to miss out. Sorry on that. Another clean sheet, back-to-back clean sheets and assist. But if you were to give your man of the match, who would you have chosen?
Listen, it's a brilliant argument to have.
Yeah.
How many weeks have we had where you're lucky to give pass marks to anybody? So if there's more than one, fucking bring it on. I'm happy to have that argument. For me, Lawson was excellent. He's that kind of player that over the last few years, Hamilton fans just love it. He just gets stuck in, gets involved in everything. He will not give the ball up easy. You've seen the amount of times he was on the deck, tangled legs, and he still kept possession. He was everywhere. He's the type of player that the Accies fans do love. Like I say, we might not necessarily have been blessed with the most technical players over the years. So that's the kind of tenacious player like Steve Lawson is the kind that we really do like to see the effort. Dan O'Reilly as well, but I think I would have to give it to him because having seen the replay of the goal, the pass is just superb, and it's not the first time he's done that. He did that, I believe, was in that for the touch goal. At
Yes,
it was a similar type of pass. End of the day, like I say, we've not been blessed with the most technical type of players. We're used to seeing our centre halves put that into the fucking pitches behind. So to see someone intentionally place a pass like that, I would personally say that creating that goal, because it was a tight game, there wasn't a lot of space, especially when they went down to 10 men. It was your typical behind the ball, no gain as a second. So to kind of see that with the vision, that kind of seals it for me. But end of the day, there's no taking away for Lawson's performance either. I think there's a few of them you could give some really good plaudits to.
Looking now forward to Friday night's game, Friday night away from home. I think I'm quite excited for it. I think it's going to be a good game. Ayr have kind of dropped off a little bit, one win in their last 5 games. They're in that bottom 3, bottom 4, so they're kind of desperately clawing for as many points as they can. We've got that little gap between us and them now. So as I said previously, we're sitting a little bit more comfortable, but they'll be desperate to get 3 points in this to try and to make that run in the last few games a little bit easier for them in the relegation battle. So I'm expecting a good game. We are riding high on confidence and they desperately need points. So I think it's going to be a really, really good game to watch.
Yeah, no, it's a team we've not beat all season. I think I touched on it in the Twitter Spaces. I've seen them before the start of the season, and I still do, as one of the poorer teams in the league. They're still very much in it, like we are, but we're mathematically not out of it. But Ayr are still very well in it. They could easily go down just now. The fact we've not beat them all season, it's just not good enough. And I'd like to think with the sort of confidence that is oozing through the players just now, and they'll have, obviously, Stan talked about the sort of mentality they had at Partick Thistle, where they wanted to sort of make the 6-1 defeat a bit right, and that's why they kept going. I'd like to think that they'll have in their heads the fact that they've not beat Ayr all season, and they'll go out and they'll put in a good performance. I think it just depends on the team that's put out and the manner in which they're set up. I'd like to think after Saturday there, where we realised we weren't as effective as what we were against Thistle, although we have the players capable of sort of playing football, I just feel that having Winter and Ryan far closer to Moyle will make them more effective, makes the full team effective. We've got midfield players that can like Lawson, he can cover practically everywhere. So it's not as if they're too far forward, you've not got the sort of players there to hold it, because you've got the 2 wing backs as well as perhaps Spence or even whoever else is in midfield. So no, I think it's important that we set up this team in a different manner to what we did on they nearly scored. It's important that we set up with a different manner going into this game, because we just struggled to break down a 10-man Queen of the South, and I do feel that Ayr will be a harder opposition. Obviously, Queen of South plus Queen's had 10 men, so made it slightly easier for us. So it'll be interesting to see how it lines up. What would your thoughts be on how we set up?
Well, I asked him in the press conference after the game about consistency and keeping the same lineup against Queens as it is against Partick, and what he said to me was he thoroughly believes in if it's not broke, don't fix it. And so I would like to think that he goes into the United game with the same team. I wouldn't be surprised now that we've got that bit of space. We're a little bit more comfortable. As you said, we're not mathematically out of it, but we do feel a little bit better. I wouldn't be surprised if we changed some of the players around. I wouldn't be surprised if, say, Scott Martin came into the team. We know he's back training. I wouldn't be surprised if Josh Mullen came back into the midfield. He played him at right wing back for the last 10 minutes of the game as well. So it wouldn't be surprised me if he makes some changes like that. But I would like to think that he keeps that consistency, because everybody's running on full confidence right now. And Iam is trying shots from 45 yards. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's him running on full confidence. So I wouldn't be surprised to see changes, but I would like him to keep it at least the same unless forced to through injury.
I think it would be silly not to continue with Moyo, Ryan, and Winter with the sort of the way in which they are playing together. They are more effective when they are quite close nicked, and you're playing them more as sort of forwards rather than having two as sort of deep wingers. And we're more capable of playing it like we showed against Thistle. So I'd like to see them continue with that. I think Kieran McDonald and Jamie Hamilton have been good when they've been playing in that wing back role, because we know Kieran McDonald and Jamie Hamilton like to get forward with the ball, and if they're playing at one of the full back positions, they don't really have the opportunity to do so as much. So I'd like to see that stay the same. I think Popescu, Easton and O'Reilly have been good together since they've came in. 2 clean sheets in a row. Be stupid to change that. And like you say, if any changes, I think the only change you can make, because we're not mathematically out of it, we need to keep the run going, and we've been told that they've got the playoffs in sight. So if they want to do that, then they need to win every game, and by doing that, you need to go with your strongest side. So at the present moment, I think the only change that would be in my mind for what would be logical would be Martin for Spence. That is the only one that I can think, because none of the other players in the team deserve to really be dropped. I'm not saying Spence deserves to be dropped by any shot of imagination, but other players have played to a better standard, I would say, and Martin's a slightly better player than Spence, so he's the only one that really comes into it for me at the moment to change up. We've obviously got the opportunity to bring subs on, etc., which I'm sure if we're not winning, he'll bring on, and hopefully Kennedy's back in the bench as well. I know he picked up an injury, but it'll be interesting to see how we line up. But it'll definitely be a good game. Hopefully we'll have a good, decent travelling away crowd. I think the last time we played there, it was a really poor game. Really, it was just genuinely such a poor game of football from both sides. But because we're in that sort of we stand, it was a good atmosphere from the fans, and there wasn't that many. So hopefully we've got a bit more now. We're on a wee bit of run, and we create a good atmosphere and get behind the players and get the win.
Absolutely. What would your score prediction be then for Ayr United? Are you feeling confident? Are you willing to back the Accies this week?
I don't really know, mate, because they Ayr really need it once again, and I feel like the second half did help us a lot on Saturday. I think it changed the game massively, and it would have been a different situation had we, because we changed the way in which we were set up, and I don't feel as if they had 11 men, we would have brought them down, and they might have sneaked something. I don't know the last time we won three in the trot. I know the stat was obviously...
That's another Scotch Struthers stat for you.
It's another Scotch Struthers stat. So, you know what, I'll go with it, because Scott seems to be hitting it with new stats every week at the present moment. So I'm going to go with a 2-1 Accies win.
That's actually what I was going to go with as well. Don't want to seem as if I'm copying you, but I was actually going to go with that. I think we're so confident right now, I think, in the team as well. I just said Queen of the South's a kind of different story. We struggled to break them down. Let's not hide away from that. And I just said the 10-man would have helped. Sometimes it makes it harder, though, obviously. I just feel that Ayr, I just said, need it more, so they'll be more open. They will need to go forward and score. Like, draws aren't good enough for them right now in the situation they're in. So I think that leaves us open. That leaves them open for us a little bit more. So I'm going to go with 2-1 as well.
We ultimately need to win as well. We're not safe yet, mate.
Yeah.
So it'll be a really tough game. Fingers crossed we can get the win though. But we'll see come Friday. It'll be a good night, and I look forward to seeing a lot of faces.
Looking forward to Ayr United now. He kept the same lineup for the Queen of the South game. Me and Brandon were discussing how the setup changed though. He made Andy Ryan and Andy Winter a lot wider. They weren't as close to David Moyo, and in turn that made them less effective. How would you make any changes to that lineup going into Ayr United? Would you like to see maybe a little bit of rotation, or is it all about just keeping consistency now going into the final games?
No, I totally agree with you guys with the effectiveness of Ryan in Winter when they're out wide. I would like to see Lewis Smith be integrated a bit more into the team. I think he's still got a ton of potential that he's not quite tapped into yet. He's had a decent season, don't get me wrong. He's a couple of goals, couple of assists, but I think we could all agree it's been a kind of disappointing season. We did have much higher hopes for him. I do think, there are a number of kind of penalties that we've got this season, and then the sending off that happened, the second challenge that led to the sending off. The amount of times I've said that players cannot deal with guys running with the ball at the deck at them. That is what I believe Lewis Smith excels at. So I think we need to kind of exploit that kind of trait a wee bit more. I would like to see him kind of be, because looking at the bench on Saturday, all our wide players were all on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, if they're playing the two wider men, fine. But if I was Kai Kennedy, Josh Mullen, Lewis Smith, I'd be sitting thinking, I'm a natural wide man. Why am I not in this team? So I would like to see them, like I say, now that we do have a bit more breathing space, don't get me wrong, I want to continue the momentum and get the win without doubt on Friday. But I would like to see us make the changes. We've seen what the seasons are like. We don't get pre-seasons. You don't get matches to kind of gamble with at pre-season. You're straight into the League Cup, and Accies fans, we've all made our thoughts aware about what we'd like to do in the League Cup. So I wouldn't want to be kind of experimenting too much at that time. So I want to be going into the season where I kind of game plan, a lineup, a style of play more established. So like I would say if he's got changes in mind and do that, I would like to see us kind of prepare for the players that we know we're going to be losing. So if there are players like Josh Mullen, for example, very unlikely we'll retain him. He'll probably be at Livy, or I could see him kicking around the Championship, maybe whoever comes down or something like that. I don't see him staying with us. So kind of give him the game time to where are we going to replace him. To be fair, he's not played out wide all season, but again, with Kai Kennedy, maybe not give the game time too much to someone that you know isn't going to be there. Start maybe getting the minutes to Marley Redfern. It had a huge impact on the start of the season he had, just playing that Kelly game last year. I would like to see the same team, but I'm open to kind of some changes if they're the right changes as well. I would like to see him try to exploit some new kind of players.
All right, and how do you see the game going? Because as you said just there, we are a little bit more comfortable now. We're not mathematically safe, but we are a little bit more comfortable now. We've got that breathing room, and Ayr United are very much still in that fight at the bottom. We still are as well, but as I said, we're a little bit more comfortable than they are. So they'll be desperate for the win. Do you know what I mean? A draw for them isn't good enough in the situation they're in. So how do you see the game going, given that we are that little bit more comfortable?
I think we'll still kind of focus on ourselves. If anything, I'd like to think that the fact that they're, like you said, desperate, maybe a bit more than us, we'll play into our hands. We'll play our game. We'll let them press. We'll maybe break on counter-attacks, exploit some spaces, things like that. I don't think it'll change our approach. And like I say, when you are desperate, that's when you do leave yourself a bit more vulnerable. So I'm still quietly confident that we'll get something. Whether it's a draw or a win, I'm still not quite sure. I don't see us getting beat. But to be fair, Ayr United have been a funny team for us this season as well.
Yeah, we're not beating them yet this season.
We've not been convincing at all against them, and there has been times where actually they've moved the ball well around us, and I've actually thought they're a half decent team. With guys like O'Connor and Adaloy and Jordan Houston and players like that. They're all half decent players. So it's interesting to see kind of how it goes. I do think there will be a bit more kind of desperation to their style of play, and there will be intensity. But like I say, I think we'll be kind of prepared to take that in and exploit the counter attack. So I'm still confident. I think it's just as important to us that we keep this momentum going, because we've not had. I don't think there's been any positivity around the club all season. So that's performance off the pitch. We are starting to kind of get that now. I mean, the atmosphere was like night and day at New Douglas Park at the weekend. I would like to see us continue that. And like I say, finishing the season strongly, they'll know will have a huge impact on where we are as fans and as a team going forward. So mathematically, in regards to the table, it's not as important to us as Ayr United, but I think the game has massive importance in other ways. So I think they'll be fully focused and they'll go for the 100%. Like I say, the desperation for Ayr is something I think we'll look to exploit, if anything. So I'm really looking forward to it. I actually thought the game was going to be on BBC Scotland because of work. I won't be able to get down there. But no, fucking £18 for a pay-per-view.
I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I think it's the same price for the tickets as well, so it's mental. But let's wrap this up. Let's get your score predictions as we always do. You've not been on for the last few weeks just because you've been busy, so you're lagging behind a little bit. Lagging behind a little bit with the league table. So what is your score prediction for the weekend?
I always text my dad in the morning of the games, and we always bet £1 on the correct score, and I got it on Saturday. I had a feeling, just because the confidence and it's a lesser team, that we weren't going to be as comfortable as we'd like to have been, and vice versa. My dad got it almost spot on at the Thistle result, where we're not expecting anything. He thinks we'll turn up. So I would like to think it's going to be a tougher game. I mean, Cooney South are a poor side. They've shown that against us all season. Ayr United have been tricky. Like I say, I'd like to think that desperation's going to show. And like I say, that there'll be intensity from them going forward, but maybe leave themselves vulnerable at the back, I'm hoping. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 Hamilton win. Hopefully we can, because defensively we've been really good recently. We've got a really kind of good established back four at the moment. I think everyone's kind of playing well. I think that will be hard to break down, and like I say, with the weeks going on, that seems to be getting stronger and stronger. So I don't see there being too many changes for the lineup at the weekend and obviously the previous week. So yeah, I think we'll do well. So yeah, 1-0 I'll go for.
All right, well, you've heard our score predictions. As always, on match day, we'll put up a tweet, comment on that to get your score predictions into our league table. You can join us on the Twitter Spaces Sunday night at 7 o'clock every week to discuss the game and any other news coming out of Accies. So you can join us on that by clicking the link in the description that takes you to our Twitter and follow us there to get notified. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you after the game.